as I was saying, Alison, Korey, and Romain from Reach and the South China Morning Post are here to tell us about their research into how your newsroom might use AI to increase loyalty in your audiences. They have published an incredible report in 4 parts, which you can already check online, again, at journalismai.info. And I strongly encourage you to have a look because there's a lot of useful information that your newsroom can use and learn from. And I'm really excited to be here with them again today to be able to hear firsthand from the amazing work they've been doing. So I'm super excited to be here with you guys today. It's really a fantastic opportunity, and I'm really proud of listening to, of everyone actually being able to listen to what I've been listening to week after week for months. So I will hand it over to you. I believe Alison will get us started. So thanks so much for doing this, and looking forward to hear what you will tell us over the next 60 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mattia. Yes, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us today to hear our contribution to the Collab. Let me introduce you to the team. We have today Korey and myself, and Team 5 also comprises Ati, who you can see on screen, Adam and Andrea. In our Collab project, we pursued an investigation into the intersections of AI, loyalty, churn, and gamification, and specifically looking at where the human and AI elements of that combine. But we're also joined today by Romain, who's representing Team 4, and he's going to talk about the extensive work his team did on the complementary aspects of content discovery and AI, which fits really well with what we were looking at. So really pleased to have him as well. We think as part of our work, we've captured effective best practice and advice for publishers. We were looking very practically at how we could capitalize on AI to create meaningful, efficient transactions with audiences. And as part of that, we've also created a playbook which draws on our research and real-world examples, which we hope will be a very useful reference point to publishers going forward. So I know we've got a lot to get through in a short time. And without further ado, I'll start getting into the detail. I'm going to talk about churn, and then I'll hand over to Korey to walk through the playbook. Then Romain will discuss his team's work on content recommendations. And finally, we'll end with a look at the opportunities for gamification in news. And of course, hopefully we'll have questions from you as well, so we'll answer any of those. So let's talk about churn to start with. How you can describe churn really depends on your organization, what it means to you. In a paid-for model, it can apply to subscribers who don't renew within a certain time frame. In a free model, such as my own company, it might refer to a drop in engagement, such as newsletter unsubscribes. And then retention, the other side of the coin, could be around power users, revenue generation, engaged activity with products, such as newsletters again, or even comments, essentially something that demonstrates an ongoing relationship between your brand and the user. And AI can play a really influential role in this, for example, segmenting customers to show clusters of behavioral patterns and spotting trends. That's a clear AI opportunity. So next slide looks at churn risk identification. We love retention. We want more engaged users who enjoy our products and consume our news as publishers. So knowing why formerly loyal customers shift away is crucial, and that's where churn risk scoring comes in. Churn score, as is explained here, is a statistical machine learning prediction value that estimates the state of churn for a given user at a given time through various data points. And that helps build predictions for us as to how long a user will be a customer. Here's a slide that shows an example of churn risk identification. We've grouped the leading indicators as part of our project work into what we consider the most relevant to publishers and news organizations. Here you can see these span a range of customer behaviors, including analytics with the drop in website activity, unsubscribes or unopen rates, which breaks the newsletter publisher's heart always, and customer service interactions. So that might even be somebody phoning up to say that they no longer want to be associated with the product that they've got. So that's the leading indicators we have. How those work. Well, this is a hypothetical example. We've created a publisher's dashboard. Over the next 2 slides, I'll show you this. This reflects the leading indicators of churn for us If we take the example of XYZ Publishing, a daily news provider, and let's say it's running a freemium website with a print version and a monthly magazine. Here you can see in the first dashboard, the overall site performance, including time spent, bounce rate, an individual's user habits as well. So the churn rating is included, the time spent on site, the newsletter open rates, and of course, social media interactions. And it also highlights the drop-off time on the site. The next slide will show a recommended action process. So a publisher looking at this dashboard can then see the process that they need to follow to ensure the user feels connected to the brand and re-engages their interest in the content. So it's a very visual way of explaining through AI, analytics, and then human interpretation how you can retain a user who may be starting to drop away. The next slide shows that the clear takeaway when it comes to reducing churn is that the relationship starts and has the potential to grow from the moment a user arrives on your site. So a good engagement-oriented strategy sets out to create a deeper relationship between the reader and the brand, and then increase the customer lifetime value. So onboarding a reader is critical. That can be seen, the example here is the Economist strategy, which ranges from a call to action to download the app, and we know that apps are where most loyal users are, to understanding the brand values with the mission statement, which is a lovely idea. The next slide looks at actually talking to readers, which I think is something that maybe some of us don't do enough. So asking users why they've stopped engaging may be an obvious step, but by then it's too late, they've already gone. Our suggestion is that you run an at-risk survey on readers, which is based on customer segmentation and the churn risk leading indicators to show you where your flight risks are. And the example here, which actually preempts it all, is new subscribers being presented with a survey, very light touch. Response rate on this is 98%, which is incredible and invaluable in terms of the data that you can recover. So another example, one way to reduce churn is not to second guess your users, and that's where A/B testing comes in. A/B testing, as I'm sure you'll know, is an incredibly effective approach, and you can test so many different aspects. At my company, Reach, headline and image testing, for example, is often part of the homepage editor's duties, and the rich insights from that can make a really improved results for the brands that use them. The next slide is an example of A/B testing, and it should show the Nice-Matin example. Is that right? Yeah, thanks Korey. So thank you to Ati for providing this in our group. The identified issue here was the lack of clarity around the no commitment offer that was being made. To test outcomes on this, the publisher added two different opportunities. One just said like no commitment offer. The other one explained in a lot more detail that you could cancel at any time and how easy the process was. And version B led to a large increase just because people understood that they weren't getting into some kind of handcuffs situation and they could exit. That didn't mean they wanted to, but it gave them more comfort as they were joining. So that's an AI example. Here is what the New York Times ABRA system does, which is embedded, as I'm sure people will be aware, in the workflow and the culture of the teams. AB and ABRA allows every team to engage in a wide range of experiments. The next slide looks at a human strategy against churn, which is the La Repubblica example, where they took steps to address a large churn rate on users who had been turning to the brand during the first wave of the pandemic. That incorporated human points alongside the AI intelligence that they were getting. And that included A/B testing to improve the subscription funnel that existed, launching newsletters, and thereby actually increasing their data capture so they could deepen their understanding of the audience through that, and sharing metrics and KPIs on a daily basis and through weekly meetings with new staff So people within the organization who weren't part of product, weren't part of marketing, they also understood that the performance around subscriptions and retention, which is so important, the ideas that potentially could be generated from that newsroom, very rich and could be completely different to what you get from other aspects of the business. So where does AI fit into the strategy? Well, creating and pushing content to users who show potentially flight risk or loyalty dwindling aspects. So newsletters, again, is an idea around that, push notifications. Managing dynamic paywalls and different pricing structures can increase subscriptions and retention if people think that they are getting a deal, for example. Creating tailored data sets, reports and KPIs. Of course, building a better performing CRM, which is the holy grail. So that's a quick look at what we found AI could work for publishers in reducing churn. And I'll hand over to Korey now to talk about the playbook and the next level of our work.
Thanks, Alison. It's good to be here with you guys again. As you might remember, I shared a little bit about personas with you guys on Tuesday if you joined us for that session. We'll recap it a little bit, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it during this session since we already went through it. Please do check out the YouTube video afterwards if you have a chance, if you haven't had a chance to join us for the Tuesday night session. So I'm going to jump straight into it. I want to cover loyalty and retention KPIs, some tactics which you can apply for your organization, and then some applications and case studies about how we've used AI at South China Morning Post to solve some of our business challenges. So the first section is really looking at loyalty and retention KPIs. Some of you may be familiar with the concept of RFV, which stands for recency, frequency, and volume. So recency is when the user came to your site. Frequency is how often do they visit the site over perhaps the past 30 days or whatever interval you specify. And then volume is a combination of page views and time spent on site. So using these different metrics, you can actually combine them into what we term an engagement score or a quality user score, or some organizations simply call RFV, if folks are good to remember the acronym. And what this really helps to do is aggregate all your valuable engagement metrics into one metric so that you can see this indexed on a regular basis. So it kind of simplifies these 3 or 4 different engagement metrics. Some organizations will often include commenting or other social engagement into this metric as well. Completion rate is the next metric that we want to cover. Since article lengths often vary, no article is necessarily the exact same length as another, given a certain number of characters, keywords, and so on and so forth. Assuming a reader can read a certain number of words per minute with a certain number of word counts in the article, you can extrapolate time on page, right? So typically for an English article, most readers read about 200 words per minute. So for a 400-word article, you can expect a reader to read about 2 minutes. What this enables you to do is, whether it's a long form read or a short form article, you can understand, is that user actually reading through the entire article, depending on how much time they spend there. And this is important to understand whether or not and how users are engaging with your content. Are they actually completing the content they seek to read? And of course, we see this differ across different content genres. So with lifestyle or hard news, we see different completion rates. Active engaged time, or AET, is another metric that is really important to look at when you're thinking about customer retention and building loyalty. So this comes from Alison's team on Reach. And this is really the time that the customer is actually actively spending doing something on the page, so moving their mouse around. There are certain tools like Chartbeat that can actually detect this, which we've highlighted a screenshot from here. And this matters because this enables users to actually, for us as publishers to actually understand what content users are invested in, what's holding their attention, what they're actually focusing on. In some instances, you can actually do usability tests where you're following their eyeballs and looking at, we have to bring this obviously in the office to have a camera on them. But this type of testing is actually very helpful as a very meticulous way of measuring, where are people's attention actually focused, and is that how we want to design products in a way that maximizes user engagement on the article itself. Perhaps we're drawing them to other links, content recommendations, or other things, which Romain is going to allude to, talk about a little bit more about in his session. Next, I kind of want to move on to tactics. I do understand that each organization has its own vision and strategy, and I certainly cannot speak to all of those across all the different publishers and media companies that we've spoken to over the past year plus. So what I want to talk about is the tactics, and what we learned from interviewing a lot of our peers and other organizations is that there's a lot of different ways in which we can actually better understand how and why we will approach certain things in a certain way. So how we want to put a subscription forth, right? We want to enable auto renew whenever possible. We want to A/B test, as Alison spoke about, designing a specific funnel or a loop to actually win back customers on a regular basis, whether that be through retargeted advertising, internal house ads, or even without a paywall or subscription model. If you're looking at a different type of conversion event, actually having some kind of conversion event. So that might be a newsletter sign up, a registration, a login, perhaps commenting, a form of sharing on social media, having an advocate for your brand. So there's several other mechanisms to conversion, even if you are a free publication, right? Even if you don't have the subscription model. So these are different tactics, and I can't go through them all in great detail due to the limited time we have, but that's part of the reason why we designed the playbook. So all this content is available through the website. I think Mattia will share the links with you guys later, but we have published all this content for you as well. So you can take a look at it in more detail later. The next piece of this tactics is really, and one example of it, I suppose, is segmenting audiences by intent. So what we've realized is that our readers come to us for different reasons. We've highlighted 4 potential ones here. There's probably many more. There might be the citizen reader, right? They want to understand and anticipate national, international, local issues that will impact them and the people around them. And that's to help them inform their decision-making process, to be an informed citizen. Some just read the news or read media to fill the time. Maybe they have a little break in their day, a coffee break in the morning on their commute to work. Others are looking at it from a social standpoint, right? They want to understand the social context that others are speaking to. Others are looking at it in a more professional context. They need to understand events and news for work, for the sake of trading, perhaps on that news, conducting business, or to better interact with their colleagues or other partners, vendors, or clients. And so in this way, once we understand what and why people are coming for, we can segment our content in such a way to meet the needs of these types of users. So we can either inform, inspire, indulge, or involve, depending on what the reader is actually coming for. And this is one potential application of active engage time, which is one of the KPIs we talked about a little bit earlier. So for instance, the informing breaking news may actually have shorter read times than an indulging piece, which might be a long read, perhaps, on softer news, but the proportion of time engagement, or the time spent engaging on the piece, can still be meaningful if the user's needs are fundamentally met. So a combination of active engage time and perhaps completion rate can help you to achieve and better understand how your readers are meaningfully engaging with you. Finally, I want to talk about some application and case studies, and since we're running a little short on time for this section, I am going to fly by these relatively quickly. But again, these are available in our on the website, so please take a look at this afterwards. And this playbook is actually quite detailed, and we spent quite a bit of time on it. So please do take a look at it. So personas, I'm not going to go into at all because there's already we did a very detailed presentation on this on Tuesday. But this is fundamentally a summary of who your users are, and really distilled from understanding who your audience is, why they're coming, how did they find how did they find your site? How do they come across you? How often do they come? What's their demographic, and how are they consuming the news? And really understanding this in a meaningful way can help you get at many different potential ways to engage with these audiences, not only for editorial, but also for product, for advertising, and for marketing. I did want to highlight another application of AI, which is Lighthouse. So this is a product that we built internally, which really helps us to democratize our first-party self-declared audience insights. So this enables our advertisers to actually see who our loyal customers are in aggregate, of course, and really better understand what their preferences are, what their propensities are, what type of things they want to invest in, perhaps. And we have very detailed information down to, in this case, ETFs or unit trusts or neither, right? So what's their preferred investment vehicle? So we've published different content reports based on this, and they are quite fascinating. And a lot of this user data is actually self-declared. Some of it is also generated. Where the AI comes in is that it's generated. A lot of this data is also generated by AI. And so we're combining self-declared data with AI-generated data to actually build a user profile around who our loyal and regular readers are. SCMP Signal is another product that we built based on AI, which scans through or uses natural language processing to actually process our content and understands the sentiment of an article and really understand not only the sentiment of the headline, but also the content itself. And to give context, this enables our advertisers and our partners to not only have confidence in brand safety, but also help to improve our internal editorial readability, or our readers' ability to understand this as well. So this has provided us with a way to reach advertisers, but also to really give a better sense of who our readers are and how they're engaging with us to our partners and to our advertising clients. Bluefin is another project that we worked on to really understand the engagement of readers over time. So how do we best spend our marketing dollars? How do we leverage the customer acquisition and customer development cycle to really build and nurture and go beyond the initial engagement and actually bring these users back. So what Bluefin does is use AI to actually predict which users will come back. And I don't have enough time to go through in detail. We'll give a brief slide of what the acquisition process actually looks like. But basically, cookies get passed to their users get scored through the course of their engagement cycle with us. And then these IDs get passed into Google Ad Manager where they can potentially be retargeted. So we basically score high propensity users or users that are highly likely to return. And then we're able to retarget them or reacquire lookalike audiences through various platforms. This enables us to actually allocate marketing dollars to focus on users that have the highest propensity to come back and really engage with us in more meaningful ways. And in that way, we're not spending our marketing dollars on everybody, but rather focusing it on a very specific subset of our potential readers that have potential to subscribe, potential to subscribe to other newsletters, potential to buy our products. And this makes for much more effective and much more targeted marketing campaigns. The impact of this, we ran an A/B test and really to understand how these Bluefin audiences performed. So we compared this against a normal set of users who didn't have any type of, I guess, designation. And we found that the engagement for these predictive cohorts was actually much significantly higher. So their page views per UV, page views per user were significantly higher by almost 60% actually, and their spend, the spend was about the same, actually a little bit less for those users, and the cost per page view is actually significantly less, about 36% less. So we saw that it's a win-win-win scenario, right? The engagement was higher, we're spending less money to engage more valuable users over time. Let's see if this loads. So we've also done some projects to measure readability. to score articles based on readability. And this kind of ties into the sentiment piece with SCMP signal as well. But we really wanted to understand, for our editors to understand, how readable is our article. And what we found is that a lot of our content is actually very difficult to read. So our encouragement to our newsroom was to write articles that are more accessible. For some pieces, maybe political economy content, that's perhaps complicated in and of itself. And for the readership audience, it's acceptable, right? That's a college level audience reading a college level article. But for some other content, culture content, sports content, perhaps we do want to make sure that that is accessible to a broader audience. So understanding readability is very important to engaging with audiences and building loyalty in more meaningful ways. And we've built this into the backend. So this is built into our content management system, which we've been building out actually our own custom system over the past year. And we've been able to not only incorporate readability, but also sentiment. So in this case, we have a COVID article about facing, this is very sad, but a reality of the times we live in, unfortunately. So Hong Kong funeral homes facing a coffin shortage, obviously a very negative sentiment article, but also assessing the difficulty of the article and then assessing whether the body of the article is actually negative as well. So in this case, the headline is much more negative than the body. So that gives our editors, the heads up that maybe there's some difference here. Is that intentional? If so, fine. If not, maybe there needs to be some adjustment. And then readability is scored as fairly difficult. So again, who is your audience that you want to address with this? Do we want to make it simpler? Or perhaps leave it as is because we're trying to address a different audience segment. So depending on who this is written for, our editors may make adjustments accordingly. But this AI-powered scoring really enables them to actually do this in a more meaningful way. So we've gone through a couple of use cases here, I think relatively quickly. And we wanted to also outline that there's many different other applications where AI can be used for the purpose of loyalty. So predicting specific segmentation of users with different actions, right? So prompting different users to log in or subscribe, or perhaps discounting a subscription with a coupon code. Really using different inventions, behavioral-based interventions powered by AI. So if a user hasn't come back in a week, maybe trigger an email or we miss you type notification if they've downloaded the application. And really the intent here is to customize different engagement points for distinctive types of users or personas. So with that, I'd like to hand off to Romain to share a little bit more about content recommendation.
Thank you very much, Korey. The way we believe we, as in the industry, can increase the user engagement and loyalty on our platform is via higher personalization of the product and the user experience. And having personalized content recommendation is one way of doing it. We have surveyed news organizations participating to JournalismAI, and all the respondents has reported that they are publishing more than 500 pieces of content every week, which is kind of equivalent to 71 stories a day. And I don't think we can expect all our regular users and even not our most loyal readers to consume all of those content and nor being interested in all of those contents. So hence the question is how we can better serve them with crafted recommendation, and especially in a world where attention span online is decreasing years after years. So good news is that the challenge is not unique to our industry. Firms like Amazon, Facebook, and Spotify have similar issues, and even at a higher scale. And they have been leveraging on AI to tackle this kind of problem for a while now. A lot of research has been published online, and an ecosystem of vendors has emerged. So if you type content recommendation engine on Google, then you will have more than 93 million of content that has been that can be written and for you to read through, which is a lot of information to go through. So our team has been working on this project with having in mind on how we can help news organizations to start their journey in building a content recommendation engine powered by AI. And so we put together some information that we believe would help anyone in the industry to save some time. The first things to have in mind is that there is not only one way to solve that specific problem. It exists different AI models having for each of them strengths and weaknesses. And here I just selected 3 of them. And I'm not going to go into details, into technical details. That's going to be way too long for this meeting and not very interesting. But just to highlight some of the concepts of each of them. The first one that I have listed here is content-based filtering. The focus of this type of models is to basically understanding the content of an article and leveraging on a technology that is called natural language processing to parse the document and being able to score similarities against other type of other documents from a corpus of stories. And the assumption here that the model is making is that one user that enjoys a specific story is likely to read another similar story. The second type of model that does exist, called demographic-based filtering, this one has the assumption that one user sharing the same location and age range with another user might have a higher likelihood to read and to be interested in similar content. The last approach, that is called collaborative filtering, is slightly more complex, using technology that is slightly more complex and advanced, but it's looking at the footprint of users on the websites, not on the content and not on the demographic, users' demographic, but their behavior on the website. Basically analyzing their footprint, what they have been reading over time, and grouping them into clusters when they are sharing the same type of patterns. And each group of users will be recommended similar type of content via the models. So different models, but still, if we can, sorry, Korey. There are different type of models, and understanding the strengths and weaknesses of those different models is critical to decide on which way you want to go, which direction you want to go. And even if you work with a vendor, understanding how the vendor is working or understanding those nuances is really important to be able to select the correct one. Like, for instance, if you look at the first model, which is around content, when a reader consumes one piece of content, you don't necessarily know if he really enjoys that specific content. And if he does not like that content, you might not want to recommend similar stories. That won't help increasing your recirculation. And also that specific model, one of its weaknesses, it has low serendipity. For the second model, when a user is browsing your website through VPN, he will be mislocated, and having an accurate age range of users is really hard, impacting the performance of the model. And the last model has been very, very popular in the recent years because of its stronger performance, but it requires enough browsing history of users on your website to accurately predict in which group he belongs to. And if the loyalty profile of your user base is more towards flyby rather than loyal, then the performance of that specific model will be very, very low. So a way to take the most out of each model is to create an hybrid solution where the engine will combine different models adapting to different conditions or situation. And that is what most tech firms are doing at the moment. Now, moving on. Such a project, implementing a content recommendation engine, is really complex. There is a lot of things that needs to be considered. We tried to put together a list of potential pitfalls and best practices, but for sure that is not exhaustive. First thing you might want to consider and have in mind is related to content. How recent do you want the recommended articles to be? Should it be 24 hours old, 48 hours old, or is a week-old article still up to date or outdated? And that is a question that only your own organization can answer because that depends on the type of content you're producing. Do you want also to include in recommended articles evergreen content? And if yes, how do you detect them via your CMS or as other AI technologies? So newsroom might also want to exclude on an ad hoc basis some stories from being recommended by the engine, and this system should handle this kind of things. And another question could be also, do you want to include branded content or not in your content recommendation engine? From a user standpoint, what is the balance of users between flybys and loyals and regulars? And as I mentioned earlier, some of the models would perform better when we know more on the users. So knowing that distribution across your users is really important to select different models or vendors. Also, and this is a question that was coming often among our discussion, among our team, but also coach that we had, is the question around transparency. Do you want to be fully transparent with your user on how recommendations are made? And if this is the case, some models are real black box, and so it's preventing you to provide insights to the user why we are recommending this type of content. And so is this an important factor for you? It's something to take into consideration from the beginning. On the product side, there's a couple of things that you need to define. What is a target you want to achieve with a content recommendation engine? Do you want to increase recirculation? Do you want a user to read one more article? Or do you want to recommend contents that have a higher likelihood to convert that user as a subscriber, for instance? And that could be two different approaches and two different models you can potentially implement. You might want also to think on your different product, the balance between editorial curation versus AI recommendation in the user journey, what this balance should be. It's also an important things to take into consideration. And finally, on the technical standpoint, you definitely want a model that is able to, or a system that is able to scale, not only in terms of infrastructure to be able to respond to different traffic spike, but also in terms of pricing. We have noticed that a lot of vendors are pricing their offers and solution based on the number of requests you are asking or recommendation requests you are doing. And so if you have a new cycle that drives a lot of traffic, that can become very expensive. So in a nutshell, there is a lot of information in that slide, but if there is one main information you should remember, is that there is a lot of component in implementing such a complex project. And so if you, one key success factor is to make sure to involve all your departments from the news organization to participate to such projects. We have heard from people, from peers in the journalism AI community, from our coach and from other news organizations, so many stories of failures while implementing such system because the recommended articles were 3 months old, or because an article that has been withdrawn from the newsroom is still being recommended to readers to read, which is a very bad user experience, or the latency for getting the recommendation for a user is very, very bad. So one key success factor, again, is to make sure to onboard the whole organization into that journey. The next question we try to ask ourselves as well is whether you should go for an in-house development or a vendor solution. And couple of ideas here. One thing for sure, if you're looking for a very fast implementation and a lower maintenance efforts on maintenance, for sure, going through a vendor it's a great way to go. However, on the long run, an internal solution that you will have developed in-house will be cheaper. And so this is definitely something to take into consideration. But also, if you develop that in-house, you will have more control over the model, which can be tailor-made to your specific needs and your specific user base, versus a vendor solution that is an off-the-shelf solution with a one-size-fits-all. And sometimes vendors are selling across different industry the same models behind But most importantly, and I think this is the most critical things to take into consideration, is building such an engine is a step forward for further application on product personalization for your news organization. As the challenge of building a content recommendation engine is not only in terms of modeling, but it is also in terms of infrastructure. Are you able to collect real-time data? Are you able to serve real-time AI predictions to your front end and to your product? And this is a level of complexity that once you have tackled that when you have built that knowledge internally to your own newsroom, then it opens doors to many, many other potential applications. So for instance, we have listed here, once you have a widget that is doing content recommendation, you can definitely think about tailor-made newsletters that's going to be sent to the readers based on what they have missed. Also, a tailor-made push notification. And once that is done, then you can even think about CTAs, call to action on your website, or marketing messages that are personalized based on the user profile, based on the personas, and all the different metrics that Korey and Alison has shared earlier. And that is, and basically the infrastructure and the complexity is very easy to replicate once you have gone through that first time. So definitely, building that expertise in-house is crucial and critical, and should be a major things to take into consideration for next stage. So last thing I wanted to share with you is if you go for in-house development, one of the approach we highly recommend is having a continuous improvement approach. In the sense that you will never nail your in-house implementation from the beginning. And so going through, making sure that you are implementing the tracking of the performance of your model, and you're monitoring that performance on a regular basis, and you are building an infrastructure that help you to easily run A/B tests to compare very easily different models and enhance your hybrid model is really critical to make sure that you will first keep everything up to date in terms of latest technology, but as well increase the performance of your models over time. That's pretty much it, what I wanted to share with you. I guess the next one, I will give it the mic back to Alison.
Thanks ever so much. So yeah, we're in the home straight. We thought that you've had some hopefully really rich, crunchy, useful advice and recommendations around how AI plugs into the publishing business for news users. What we want to wind up with is the fun stuff, which is gamification. The opportunities for gamification are vast. And in news, we think they're pretty much unexploited, and there are big opportunities. So when you think how your data is incorporated in fun, engaging ways, you might think of Spotify or Strava and the data viz they produce for you individually. We believe that we could do this for news. Now, as you can imagine, doing this on a working site in a couple of months to produce something that actually was functional wasn't going to happen. But we've created some visualizations, and that should give you an idea of how it works. And I've also got the delight of having a video in this section of the presentation. So, you know, fingers crossed on that one. Our graphics here show how, if you were a user and you were logged in, your stats might be displayed back to you. You can see interactions, giving information around your news habits, badges that you can work towards, which is always a really fun thing, providing kind of more gamification and potentially challenges. You can also see the activity feeds, which could act as bookmarking in the same way you might favorite a tweet to save it for later. You could actually hit a story that you didn't have time to read and it would save into your bookmarks. The next slide looks at this in slightly more detail. So our user here can see kind of opportunities that she's had around sharing. So she can see how many stories that she's actually read, how many she's sent on to other people. We also think that a breakdown of stories is a good way of them seeing not only what they've read and kind of the topics that they're heavily invested in, but potentially could lead to kind of surprise and elements of discovery around news. So the algorithmic suggestions, for example, don't have to just be, you like X topic, here's some more. It might be based around login times. So long reads for a Sunday morning, for example. So like this person logs in every Sunday morning. They may not necessarily always look at like the leisure kind of reads on there, but if there's a suggestion that they're there, then perhaps there's more interest in clicking on them because they've got that time space. So using AI in this way can create a constant feedback loop, not only for the publisher, but also for the user. You add some humor and interaction over the top of it. So for example, if you can see from your backend that you've got some power users in there who have got multiple badges, they're really engaged, they comment on lots of stories, you might want to take that person into a focus group with a few others and get their feedback. You might want to have some rewards where they're invited into like participate in certain news discussions, etc., make them feel more invested. And that again leads to things that people who are logging in can work towards. Next slide, I think, is the video, isn't it? So hopefully this will work. So from this, you can see kind of a breakdown of goals, rewards, and learning from that users. We've got point system. One of the things that I really like about this is the idea of streaks, where people log in every day. Which would be crushing to go from 25 to 0. And then the story types. So you get to be an expert in certain topics and suggestions for things that you might have missed. So that's a look at some of the kind of opportunities around gamification that we see exist. It's definitely something that has made us in Reach think more deeply around it. In terms of how you can apply it, we've got key points here that we've identified. And I would say that my colleague Adam Walker, who's part of the Collab team, has done a lot of work on this. And hopefully we'll be looking in Reach at taking some of his work and putting it into the real world. But you can see, the different degrees of strength and complexity that would be missed if you were a data analytics person logging in the newsroom, for example, and responsible for reporting back. But then the pro on that is, of course, it's only as good as the data that can be accessed. There's a lot of information I think that we could talk about on gamification, but it's definitely something that I would encourage any publisher to think about. It's certainly one of the things that our Collab team had a lot of fun in brainstorming around how we could see it work, and it's one that I think we will be seeing more and more incorporated in the future. Brilliant way of gaining interaction, engagement, and relationships with a user. So that's a quick gallop through gamification. I'll hand back to Korey, who's been flying the slide deck so brilliantly, thank you, for his kind of sum up and closing remarks on this.
Thank you, Alison. So in all our conversations with our coaches, with our peers, and with our colleagues, what we've realized is that there's really no silver bullet or magical algorithm that will solve all our churn problems or be able to retain all our users without a massive degree of hard work, testing, and iteration. And each publisher's customer base, each media company's publisher base or customer base, reader base is very distinct and unique. And every organization, of course, has different goals and different strategies. So really understanding and anticipating our audience needs is really one of the clear areas where AI can serve to benefit the news media business, and in particular, the newsroom that's attempting to win new audiences and retain existing audiences and convert them into more engaged users. For news publishers specifically, we've found that where we're able to leverage AI is to maximize the impact of our content, to attract new users, to alert consumers of new offerings or new content, and really to improve the distribution strategies that serve our user needs at the optimal time. So giving the content to the users at the right time when they're actually seeking it out. And so we've also realized that AI does not exist in isolation, right? It is a tool. It's not a replacement for people. And AI should really complement and supplement processes to further enhance our human experience and our interaction with news. So with that, I'd like to say thanks and open the floor to any questions that we might have.
Thank you, guys, for the extensive presentation. I mean, incredible that over just a few months you developed 4 different parts, each of them so like full of interesting best practice and examples for newsrooms. We do have questions, so I'm going to start with that. So on YouTube, Samia, who presented yesterday here at the festival, had a couple of questions. The first one is for you, Alison, about gamification, which, as I expected, triggered the curiosity of people. And Samia was asking if you could expand on the points system and if there is any competition element that you would envision as part of the gamification models.
Yeah, I saw that question. I think it's a brilliant question as well, because really we're through the looking glass on this one. You could do whatever you wanted with it. You could make it open. So if they wanted to have kind of a growing connection within the site, they're competing against each other. Potentially you could work with marketing so they could convert points into actual things. So like physical rewards might be a really nice way of like noting, or it might be that you get to like 100 logins and you get a newsletter from the editor saying how much they appreciate you. So I genuinely think that like if you can think it, you could probably do it on this one.
Thank you, Alison. That's a great point. There's a question on Telegram for SCMP. So Romain, Korey, I'll let you decide who take it. The question is for Lynn, and she's asking if you have any specific insights about how you might use AI specifically to make your site or app the go-to place for breaking news coverage, because of the value, of course, then of that specific element could bring to your brand as a whole.
Romain, you want to take that one on the content recommendation side? Or do you want to?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an application of that, and this is what I was mentioning during the presentation, is regarding content recommendation. We shouldn't see that as only a potential widget on the website that is living and recommending content, but as well the fact that you are able to push the right content to the right user at the right time. That is definitely an option that AI can help you to build that relationship with the users. So the users, if you start to see like a breaking news that is really interesting for him and he receives it at the right time, then he will get starting using that habit of saying, oh, there is this news that is really important coming from that app. And he will have in mind that SCMP is a reference for all the breaking news that he's looking for instance. So that is definitely an application that can be based on content recommendation.
Thank you, Romain. Another question on YouTube comes from Magnus, who is talking about his publication, I assume, that we want to make more of our readers use our login to know more about them. So maybe, Alison, this is for you, because he's basically asking in another comment if you have best practice or case studies to share about publications without a subscription model using AI in good ways to, again, invite people to log in and register to your platform.
Yeah, there's one that we're doing at the moment that is generating a lot of success in terms of login and then kind of moving forward, is around editorial surveys. So I'm creating products that help people. So for example, 2 things that we're doing at the moment. We've launched a Secret Elves newsletter, which is for parents, and that essentially is full of ideas and tips around kind of Christmas, It's a short-term thing, but it's really useful at the moment, especially if like people are looking for deals around gifts or even kind of elf on the shelf ideas. It's just there. So having that like little useful thing that they can log in and access is, that's a kind of straightforward one. The other thing that we're looking at and which is in play at the moment is to create a Reach ID. So people can we're creating one ID so people can use it across all of our products. And that will hopefully make things a little more streamlined and easier. With regards to the editorial survey project, happy to talk about that separately because I know there'll be a time pressure here. But I can if you message me on Twitter, for example, I'm at Alison Gow, I can DM you some examples as well.
And if I may add and jump into there, Mattia, a few things that I wanted to add. One thing also, I mean, when it comes to asking the users to register, if it's not for a subscription model, what is the value you are bringing to that users with that registration? And really defining that added value is key for conversion and having the users to register. And one of them related for content recommendation, for instance, is recommending articles that the user haven't read, right? And if you are able to track your users from multiple platforms, then you can even offer him a better experience of what he might be interested in reading. And so increasing that experience for him would be something out of value. But also, if we are still thinking about AI and its application, I've mentioned about that during the presentation, having AI to know which CTA to put in front of the users at the right moment on your websites could be something helping you optimizing and increasing conversion through a specific goal and target. For instance, I think all our newsroom has so many messages that we are sending to our users at the same time. Subscribe to our newsletter, register, subscribe to our plan, look at Facebook, and so on and so forth. And so they have so many information. We are asking them so many actions at the same time. Being able to send the right message at the right person at the same time is definitely something that AI can help you do. And it's a way for increasing, for instance, registration on the website.
That's a great addition, Romain. Especially, I think during the collab, we came back very often to this idea of, okay, we're using new technologies, but at the end of the day, we need to explain the value of it. So this was a great example of exactly why we were getting back to that concept of the value we provide to the audiences again and again over these months. So thanks for contributing to that. I think we are, it's time for us to wrap up. So I'm sorry if we didn't get to answer all the questions. We will still, as Alison said, share contacts and the presentation and the links so you can know more. I just wanted to bring in Charlie for a second so he can also wrap us out. My English sometimes completely abandons me at the wrong moments. Charlie, hi.
Hi there, fantastic presentation. And I think there's a huge amount there for people to take on, but you really made it clear, and they can go to the website that you've created, because obviously the first thing, a lot of people will be thinking, where do I start? Your website is a fantastic guide for people who, this is such a core issue, but there's so many things you can do. There's almost an embarrassment of riches that you said there. So I'm sure there's something for everyone, but thanks very much. It was an amazing hour for us all. Thanks.
Thank you, Charlie. And again, a huge thank you, Alison, Korey, Romain, and the rest of your teams for the really hard work you put in over 6 months to get to the results you were able to present today. We will keep sharing widely on all platforms the link to your final study report. I don't even know what to call it because it's so rich that it doesn't really have one only label. But with this one, I think we're ready to close the session. Thank you again to our fantastic speakers for this. And if you're following us online, we will see you again in a couple of hours for a conversation on new roles in the newsroom and how AI is contributing to change them. So see you soon.